Straight up 8, you're live.
Hello, everyone. All those out with questions on their mind. And remember that if you've a mind, you can ask me questions and I will try to give you answers. I'm sure that answers by different people might be different, but I give you from the perspective of being a repairman in a repair business in this area for 31 years. It does not mean I know everything. It does not mean that everything I do is right. I am still learning, and whenever I stop making mistakes, I will be dead. I just try not to make a lot of mistakes. Try not to make the same mistakes. So what I'm offering you is a perspective that you might learn some of the things that I learned before you would have to learn them yourself. So anytime you have a question, does not have to be related to what I'm talking about. It can be related to anything that you have a mind to. And I will take the time to answer your question. We're still learning on how to see the comments.
None on this one.
So be patient with us. We're still learning the live stream game. And we hope to answer as many questions as we can. But in the meantime, if there are no questions, I will continue with the subject that I have in front of us. So what I want to do is finish up or do a second phase of metal roofing estimation. What I did last time was discuss how I came to create a way of doing metal roofs on mobile homes, the evolution, if you will, of how that came to be. And along the way, you can pick up those things and use them as you see fit. All the different ways that I learned are all different complexities. The early ones were using a metal stud to build a roof over a rounded roof home or even a peaked roof home so that I could put insulation in between the metal roof or insulation in between the stripping that I use, which would be drywall channel and would also be later 1x4s. So those are all things that I learned along the way, and you can go back to last week's discussion to find out how that happens and what maybe you want to do yourself, because certainly what I've seen is people build a barn over a single wide so they can have a decent roof, and there's no need for that. You can do that, but now you have 4x4s or 6x6s all around your home, and it's always going to look like you purposely parked your home underneath a barn, which is okay if that's what you're good with. It's just massively more expensive and restricting on adding on to. But biggest thing is expense. Now, I went to great lengths to discuss all the different, where I used those different methods to get down to a stripped down version, which a lot of people in mobile homes appreciate a smaller budget. So what I'm going to do now is talk to you about what I do with conventional home roofs, how I come up with the prices, and double wides, which are similar. They are lower incline than most conventional homes. Not all. Some conventional homes are similar to a double wide, but they have a double wide mobile home has a peaked in the center, quite often a dormer over the front door, and valleys. when you're doing that, you have similarities to a conventional home, which it may have more than one dormer. It might not have any, like some double wide mobile homes do. They have those things in similarity. So we'll talk about how we get to that point and some of the materials that might be needed, and I hope I catch everything along the way. And again, if you have any questions, be sure to ask, and we'll take the time to answer any questions that you might have. So whenever it comes to discussion about what is now called slip sheets, and I know that some of you may not know what that is, and actually I'm not very familiar with it either because I've never used them in 30 plus years. And that is sheets that you put on top of the shingles when you fasten the metal roof to the shingles. And the idea is that the expansion and contraction of the metal moves so much that it would scratch the bottom of the metal and cause it to rust. So they sell you a sheet that you put underneath the metal so it won't do that. But I may catch some criticism from those who use slip sheets. But in 31 years of putting metal roofs on shingles, I have never, and I'm going to say this again, I have never seen rust on the bottom of the sheet when I had to take the metal off. Why would I be taking the metal off? Well, I'll tell you. There were some big hailstorms used to come through almost every year here in Northwest Arkansas some 25 years ago. Do a lot of damage to cars and such, and some damage to metal roofs. Baseball size hail were only leaving dime sized dents in the metal itself. Baseball size were leaving dime sized dents, but they had insurance and they wanted new metal. So when I took that metal off, which might have been only 5 or 6 years old, or whenever somebody did an addition to that conventional home or double wide, I had to take that metal off. I got to see firsthand any evidence that there might be expansion and contraction causing the bottom of the sheet to start scratching and getting rust on it, and therefore rust out. So, first of all, I'm telling you that I have not seen it in the 31 years that I've been doing it. And second of all, I'm going to tell you that there has not, after 31 years, been any callback like, hey, come fix this roof. Consider that. How many shingle roofs do you know that last even 15 years without some wind damage or hail damage? 30 years? 31 years I have been doing. Those roofs, the color fades eventually because they have a 40-year warranty, a limited warranty. I really am not pitching that whenever I sell a metal roof. But I talk about metal roofs on conventional homes or double wides. I talk about the fact that most shingles are held on by 3 nails, maybe 4, or staples, and each one of those cover about a 4 inch area by less than 3 foot wide. Lots and lots of components, lots and lots of nails. High winds get underneath the flap and pull off sections. It happens every year. Every year, guys. In this area, we get episodes of 90 mile an hour 4 times every 3 years. 4 times. That's 90 miles an hour. In this area, we get anywhere from 110 to negative 20. That's a pretty good range that you can compare with your area.
Yeah, I never think that's fair. I don't think we should get triple digits and single digits.
Yeah, we can get single digits. easily. So what I'm leading you through is, first of all, do you need those slip sheets? They're going to sell it to you because that's a new thing, that maybe they do differently. But I'm going to tell you, in the 31 years that I've been in this area, in the center of the United States, with a wide range of temperature, I've not seen any issue with that. Now, there are other issues that I have seen over and over again. And that is when people get ready to put a metal roof on a shingle, over a shingle. Quite often they'll strip it with 2x4s. And when they do that, they don't put any insulation in between the 2x4s. That causes condensation. What is condensation caused by? There is a difference of temperature, say 100 outside or even 80, and underneath that metal is 60, maybe 70. But anytime there's a difference in temperature, there will be condensation. It will be underneath. That condensation slides down that metal, or drips down to that roof, slides down to that 2x4, and rots it out. It takes probably 10 years. But the evidence comes up whenever high winds come along, and now those compromised 2x are starting to not hold as well, and the wind rushes by, sucks up that roof, and pulls it off. And you're like, well, it was just high winds. But would it have happened if that metal had just been fastened to the shingles? Mind you, without the slip sheets that they're passing off now? No. If it did, it lifts the whole roof off. So, in my experience, you need to stay away from stripping your roof with 2x. First of all, it makes your soffit, the distance between your roof and your soffit, wider. That means your fascia will be wider. So you got your fascia and your soffit. So that will be wider. Instead of looking like a conventional home, it's going to look wider because you got 1.5 inches more. All right, so I do not recommend that you strip a roof on a home, even if it's because you're trying to. Now, what I have done is a really bad roofed house, but there may be added onto, or a double wide where you wanted a perfectly flat roof. Whenever people start getting to that point, they're going to end up paying for their being fussy. And that fussiness can cause you to want to shim up. And again, if you raise that metal up off of those shingles, which I have done, you need to put some kind of insulation. Foam. We talk about Double Bubble or the other brands that are out there. Prodex is the best one I know of because of its ability to stick one to the other and create a very good vapor barrier. But you need the insulation to stop the condensation. So anytime you shim up that roof to try to get it flat, you need to be conscious of the fact that you need to have insulation. All right, so if you decide to do that, to raise the roof up to try to keep a hump out of the roof that you don't want to see, understand you're changing the fascia most often, not always. The fascia, which is what when you drive by you see, say on that dormer, you see that will be wider because you're trying to change the width. All right, if you do that, then if you don't want it to look weird, you're going to have the same width all the way across. All right, I have over and over again helped people make houses that were in bad shape look way, way better. So they could have a flat metal roof, and that was what they wanted to be done. The rafters, quite often, These were houses that were patched together in the 70s and 60s and things like that, with different kinds of lumber at different times, added on to and added on to houses from the 50s and so on. And I would say we're gonna see that over and over again as history passes. But as a family grows, they start out with a small home and it gets larger. We're seeing more and more people head toward little homes. And what you're going to end up doing with a little home is add on to it. So that we're going to see that history repeat itself.
Multi-families living.
Yes, as those families. So I know I'm getting wordy with all this, but I want to put that out there. There's no need for slip sheets. And if you raise that roof up, trying to strip your roof, you understand you need to have insulation or you're going to have condensation. No insulation equals condensation. Condensation will cause a roof leak and it will weaken whatever it is you strip that roof with, 2x or 1x. It will weaken it. I promise you. It may take a while, but it will. All right. Now, I'm going to move to the dry erase board, which we've kind of set up in premise of getting better and better at it. And hopefully I can draw it out like I would estimate. I know that now they have drones that fly over and they can do calculations and stuff with shingles, but shingles is different than metal roof. You literally have components that you have to cut either at the place they manufacture it, or, and most likely, you have to cut it on site. So this is how I do it, and I really don't make many mistakes on that because that's too expensive. So here we go.
Okay, you've got the whole board on this one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Quite often, let's see, you end up with a roof that looks something like this. Maybe not this steep. This is pretty steep. All right. All right. And the front door will be so it's not proportionate, but your home is like that. All right. This is really simple. You have valleys that run down, through here. These, I'm not really doing that very justice. Let me see if I can do a little bit better. All right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure.
Okay, the more you with the elbows, it shakes everything.
Deal with it. Okay, here we go. From the peak to the edge, I need to know that measurement. Let's say 15 foot. That's a round figure. So I know that I need a 15-foot length, and I would be a little bit less than that so I can have adjustment, because invariably the distance between here and here, even though it's exactly 15 to the peak, you don't want the metal to come all the way to the peak, because quite often the other side might bump into this side and you end up with a clash up there and you're having to cut. The fact of the matter is you have a ridge cap across the top that is 5.5 inches lap on each side for a regular ridge cap, and you can get any size ridge cap that you want. Okay, so why do you need to be that tight? You don't. So allow yourself a little room. So if it's 15 from the peak to the edge, why don't you go 14 foot 10? All right. Now, the metal that you've got is 3 foot wide whenever it's said and done. 36 inches. So what you're going to do is measure across here to where that valley comes in and divide by 3. By 3 foot, okay? And then add some. And then you're going to have some more over here. So make sure that your measurements are the same and check the other side also. So we're going to have, let's say, 14 foot 10s. But that doesn't cover this area here. So how do we get that area here? That's going to be an angle. I think I can do that. I should be in drawing a little bit more. So anyway, the angles will you'll end up having to cut one sheet for sure, maybe 2 full length, so you can go another 6 foot up. Sometimes you can start by one sheet up, one measuring over, and then going up one sheet over, 3 foot, or sometimes you can go 6 on each side. So that's the majority of what you're doing. So then you would come up here and go on the long side at 3 foot over from where it meets here. Get measurement 1, 3, 9, 12, 15, 18, all the way over. And then wherever it laps over that first one, then you have a shorter distance on the long side. You're going to end up cutting it to go inside that valley. And I have videos on how to do that. Now we'll also talk about the valley. Whenever you're doing that, you can shorten and order panels for both sides. They're going to be about the same length, but double check it. And be long if you want to. You do not need to be exactly on the long side. You can be beyond 3 or 4 inches or 6 inches. You're going to have to cut it down. And once you get that angle right, which again I show you how to do that in those videos, once you get that angle right, you're going to end up cutting the sheet so that it can fit. If it's long up here, you can cut it off up here by hand. You don't want to, but you can easily, and I do quite often. So the sheets end up being shorter and shorter until the very peak, and the very top one you may end up cutting a notch or a V in it so that it fits on both sides, however much it falls out. And then you start down the other side. Okay, so that's what we would be doing. So it might be 14 foot 10s, and then be 2 9-footers, 2 6-footers, and 2 4s right here at the very peak. That would get you on both sides. So it could be quite a bit different than that lengthwise. That's the first thing that you might look at. Those are your basic, and you're going to do both sides. If there's a dormer on the other side, then you deal with that. The next thing you look at is vents. So you're going to have, if you have a gas water heater, if you have a gas heater, if you have a exhaust vent that happens to go through the roof, quite often on double wides they do, and that causes issue, and I will explain later. Maybe another video. I think I've got videos on that. Is really the problem with the exhaust vents in bathrooms on double wides is that the roof and then the exhaust vent stands right there. Rain will come in and bounce off this roof, go up inside the vent and then down, and ends up dripping on the floor. And there's lots of issues with that. I end up using screen to wrap around it to stop. But anyway, you still have to deal with it. And then when you're going directly to the shingles, you have to put your plumbing vents through. So that would be 1.5 to 2 inch plumbing vents. Sometimes you get as much as 3 on a bigger home where they put multiple vents into one. It's not very often. So your plumbing vents, wherever they are, you have, let's say, most of the time it's on the other side of the house. You pull up and you would have less vents on this side. But on the other side, you might have vents more than you have on the front. So you'll want to count your vents. And if you have like a fireplace, on double wides they do, it's mostly decoration. They're horrible at dealing with smoke, and they're not very good about getting heat out. They're just there for looks. But guess what? You have to deal with that vent going through the roof. It's a metal roof vent. You'll have to get a decent roof jack from the supply house. So you're going to do several roof jacks for plumbing, and some of the larger ones for your heater and fireplace. All right, so those roof jacks, quite often can be for a number of reasons, but you do need to deal with it because you are going directly to the shingles. So whenever you're ordering your screws, what I do is I tell them 1.5 inch metal to wood. And then that metal roof, I'm putting the screws here. Early on, they used to tell me you put the screws here. And I showed them on their product sheets where you had the colors and charts that it was there, and they like, oh man, we got to do something about that. So they took them almost 1.5 years, 2 years after they changed it. They want you to put it here no, we're not doing that here. All right. Personally, I don't remember any kind of difference, or I don't really, they said the engineers came up with it was better to do it in the flat. So that's what I do now. But it's 1.5 inch metal to wood. All right. Those have washers on them. You're going to tell them, I want on 2-foot centers. I'm going to make rows every 2 foot, and they'll figure that out for you. How many? So whenever you call it in, they'll tell you how many bags you need of screws to do this roof. And tell them to throw in a little bit if you think you're going to be bad at it. Is that all? No. It could be if you didn't have a dormer, but we have one, let's say. Is that all? No. You may want, and with this dormer, you're going to have to deal with putting in a valley. A valley ends up with, I think it's like 12 inches on each side, and there'll be a rib in the center. And that, you can take the metal all the way to here, or you can take it back 6 inches from the center, pop a line, and make all your metal cut to that. Whichever one the customer prefers. If you run the metal all the way to the rib here, it will catch leaves a little bit, but it still might look tighter than it might 6 inches away. So either way, you're going to have this valley, and the metal is going to come up on it at whatever point you want it to, over here next to the center, or 6 inches, 8 inches back. You have plenty of room. And that valley is wide enough that you can now put valley foam. So whatever length you have on the valley, you need to extend it past. Quite often it meets right over the top of this dormer. So you measure all the way through. The valleys, unless you order them special, come in 10-foot lengths. 10-foot lengths. The valley foam, you need valley foam. Why? Because they don't make a foam that matches exactly the angles that you're going to cut on that valley. So you're going to put in a roll of foam that starts out really thin, maybe a 1/2 inch thick, and as you pull it out and put it underneath the metal, it has sticky on it, so it's kind of tricky getting it under. You're lifting the metal up after you pull the screws. I've got videos on how to do that. You're going to be sliding that foam under there, and with time it will expand to as big as 3 inches. How do I know that? Because if you don't use it, it ends up being that big. Not necessarily 3 inches, but 2 inches, let's say. It will definitely expand underneath the ribs that we have here to keep water from coming from one side and getting underneath. There's also usually on the valleys a rib that is turned like so. Even if metal got under there or water got under there, it would hit that edge right here, and it wouldn't let water easily go through. The tricky thing gets to be with cold weather. You end up with a lot of ice that gets in places, or blocks. Say it blocks an area right here, stacks up. You end up seeing a snow built up. Anytime you see that, that snow can melt and it goes back. It literally can go uphill. I tell people that all the time. The only time you really can see water go uphill is when it snows on a roof. Water will literally run off that stack of snow and go uphill on them. It's just like you have to have everything sealed well. So that valley foam comes in 20-foot lengths. So every 10-foot valley that you buy, you need a roll of valley foam. Does that make sense? Because 10-foot long, you have valley foam on both sides. So it's in 20-foot lengths. You're going to get one roll of valley foam per each length of 10-foot valley. Okay, so every piece of valley, which is 10 foot long, unless you order it differently, needs one 20-foot valley foam roll. So I'm going to say this needs 1.5, so 15 feet. So I need 1.5 on each side, would be 3 valley pieces, and I need 3 rolls of valley foam. You see how I did that? 3 rolls of valley foam. Now, again, you would be putting your screws in the flats. And you can, again, watch those videos and you'll see. Now, is that all that we have to worry about? No. If we have this roof, even if we don't have a dormer, we now have to start thinking about the edges. Do you want to just cut the metal off flush, or do you want to dress it up some? How would we dress it up? Well, you can put rake and corner. Now it's called rake, like a yard rake, and corner. That rake and corner, unless you order it differently, comes in 10-foot lengths. Remember, anytime you order something different than that, it generally costs more. It's just the way it works. So if this is 15 feet here, you're going to end up with 1.5 on there and 1.5 here to cover the edge. So rake and corner is, it goes like so, kind of goes at an angle like this and goes up to a corner, goes across. and then back down and then flat. So you put your screws here and here. That goes on this area right here to dress it up real pretty. Whenever you put your screws right down through here to fasten this rake and corner, you need to put a bead of silicone. So you're not going to want to put tar. I'm a big advocate of tar, and I know that there's a lot of people don't like it, but you will need tar also to seal up. You can use the engineered silicone, but be forewarned, you need to go back over it at least another time and probably 2 more times, because the silicone will shrink. Any kind of silicone or caulking, engineered or otherwise, I've not seen any of it that doesn't shrink. And then you have to go back and try to see those little holes that it, or cracks that it allows. But anyway, you will need to be sealing that right on this edge right here, so that when water comes running down this roof, it doesn't get behind and get to those screws that you use to fasten this rake and corner. Now you have the ability to clean edge the outside there. If you want to, you can put fascia and then fasten right here. At any point, you can pull the screws and change the fascia if you want. So you have 4 outside corners, and then you have this one here also. So you have the rake and corner there. Is that all? No. No. That is an optional thing. You don't have to do it, but it is a good idea because we end up ensuring that this roof doesn't let air get underneath it. And it has a decorative, clean look, gives you a straight corner. Quite often the house, no matter how pretty it is not square, right? So it's not square. That means you're putting square metal on it. Straight metal ends up being kind of diagonal sometimes. You'll end up having special cuts to get it to fit. It's odd. You know, you want everything to be perfect, but it is not. You have to pay really, really high dollar to get things that are just right. That's a fact. Brand new houses, old houses, the old timers talking about way back in the day, we used to do everything, take care to do a better job. That's not true. It all had to do with whoever did the work, how much of a hurry they were in. So that's what you're doing. You're making a good sharp corner right there with whatever, and it can cover, this is like 3-4 inches. Okay, it can cover a big imperfection on this roof. All right, but you're also going to do it here on the dormer. Now, like I was saying, there's more. On the dormer and across this peak, you're going to have your ridge cap. That you would measure in length. And again, these are on 10-foot lengths. Okay? You can order longer, but it's also going to cost you more generally. You have to, it's not something normal, it's going to cost more. But it is, you have the option of different heights. Okay. Now that's going to be fastened into the ribs. That, it ends up looking like this, down and then a little bit of a hump, and then I'm doing a terrible job. I don't know why I'm not very artistic today, but I'm not. It can be a lot flatter than this, and a little bit of a flat area, and then drops down. Okay, your screws go right here, and the screws are going to go into the ribs. That seals up the top of that roof, except for, and let's keep in mind first, we're gonna measure the whole length here and on the top of the ridge cap, on top of the dormer. We need to know in lengths of 10, and remember, you're going to lap one over the other. You don't want to be exactly 20 foot because you don't have any room to lap over. You have to lap over, and I would say 6 inches. Okay, on that peak, you're going to lap one over the other. And I'm not going to tell you a lot about which direction to lay. What I want you to focus on is that whatever length that is across there and whatever length across the dormer, you need to have that much in 10-foot lengths to lap over, plus lapping over each other. Okay? Now, since we're screwing that ridge cap over the top here into that, there's a gap here. Does that matter? Yes, it does matter. Because a driving wind and rain can drive up underneath and go up here, and then all of a sudden that water will tend to come underneath the metal. So we have to use what is called a closure, spelled C-L-O-S-U-R. Now, it's a foam closure. You have the option to have it with sticky on the bottom or not. Without the sticky, it's easier to slide underneath the ridge cap. But generally, I pop a line for the ridge cap, and then I take the sticky foam and stick it right up above that, so that when I fastened this roof jack, it will tighten down on the foam. The foam literally goes over the top and it squeezes down. From time to time, let's see, I would say in 10 to 15 years time, you might want to check that foam closure, because sometimes it deteriorates enough that you might have to get in there and repair a few places. It wouldn't even be a bad idea after 15 years, even 10 or 12 years, that you replace the foam. How much, how often, how many pieces would you need? You need as much foam closure, over closure, not under, the under goes down here. You need as much here as the number of all the sheets you have. So if you have 15, 2, 2, and 2, that's 21. You need 21 sheets, or 21, and also 21 foam closures. Okay? However many, addition of both sides, you need that many. However many sheets you have, you need that much foam closure. Better be safe than sorry. Better to have too much than too little, but not massively too much. Okay, so now we have the foam closure across the top on both sides of the ridge cap. Is there anything else we might need to estimate? Yes, there is. You have the choice to either put rake and corner across the bottom before you put the metal on, or what they have is a residential drip edge. Now, on a shingle roof, they have a drip edge that you put on the outside of the edge there, so that you have something to slide the fascia up underneath. The fascia soffit. So you would have that so you can slide your fascia up underneath that and it wouldn't be flopping. What you can do is you can either use the rake and corner across here, which would be wider, 3.5, 4 inches across, or you can use what they call a residential drip edge, and it has that underneath here, maybe flat if you want it. You don't want that hump there. But it on the bottom, instead of having that lip like so, it does a lip like drip edge. And it might have that right here. So it's going to run across. It's similar to regular drip edge, but it's larger. So it goes on there first, and then you put your metal on. You would not put it where your dormer face is, but on that bottom edges here, you have a residential drip edge available, or rake and corner. Okay? You would measure across this bottom, the flat areas, and put that on before you put your metal. Then you would again remember that you are ordering it in 10-foot lengths unless you pay extra. So we have talked about all the different things that are components that you buy from the metal building supply house. Is there more? Yes. You can use the engineered silicone that they sell. I have not had very good success with it. I do not like to have to fix drywall ceilings because of a stain. So I tell people up front that I'm probably going to seal it with tar, or they have other names for it now, but it's tar. It's roof cement, cold roof cement, wet roof cement, different name brands, but Lowe's, Home Depot, all those places sell it. I generally take it and put tape in a square fashion around wherever the roof jack is, and then I tar all the way around like so, sealing up all the screws and anything that might be causing a leak all the way around that, and get it close to, as I can, to feathering it out close to that tape. So now we're talking about a bucket of tar and a roll of quick, easy release tape, the blue tape, green tape, rock tape. You can use masking tape, but I usually use 2-inch, and feather it all out, and then I pull that tape up and it looks like it's square, custom made, professional done. So here we are. Is there much difference between a double wide mobile home and a conventional home? Well, the difference would be the steepness of the roof. Most of the time a double wide is, very easy to climb, and you don't have to worry too much about falling off. But the exception to that are the modular homes. Those homes come in and they have steeper roofs, and they have it folded down and they tilt it up to the height of something similar to a regular conventional home. So now I'm when I have to deal with a steep roof, I kind of cheat. What do I do? I take one of those cheapy aluminum ladders and extension ladders, and pull one part apart from the other and drill holes in it, and then I fasten it with screws. And I might, either from whatever direction I'm going, if I'm coming from here, I'm putting the metal on, and then I'm putting the other half over here, and I'm ready to pull this one up with the screws, and I'm going up and down that ladder. That's not something you have to do, but when you're in a steep roof, you better figure out a way to stay on that roof. And that's what I do. I take a cheapy aluminum ladder, and that's all I think. The ones that you climb up and it wobbles around, I take apart and I put it on the roof and I screw it, and then I move it over to the other side of me and screw it so that I can put the next 3-foot sheet on. And I've actually been on there so long that I didn't realize I had my phone in my back pocket and crushed my phone with my big heavy butt. So you might consider buying a cheap aluminum ladder that you can take apart and drill holes in the edges so that you can put screws into the roof, and you don't have to worry about falling off your steep roof if you have.
They also make special shoes.
Yes, and they also make, thank you, Christina. They make a brand of shoes called Cougar Paws.
We have videos about it.
And some of those Cougar Paws have foam that helps you stay on. Is it a guarantee? I'm gonna say no. Quite often the pebbles get underneath that foam, even though that foam sticks really well. It still will slide quite a bit. Usually when you're going up on a shingle roof, it's because the roof has gotten some age to it, and the pebbles are starting to come down, and you stand on it. Be careful, don't rely on those Cougar Paws to keep you on the roof. They actually have Cougar Paws that are for metal roof also. They have little magnets in them. Would I rely on those? No. Particularly when you're stepping off of shingles and going to the metal, because sometimes the shingle pebbles stick into they help. they're worth what you would pay to get the help. So, Cougar Paws is the brand, and I would definitely recommend, if you're going to have to be on a metal roof or a shingle roof that's steep, that you look into getting some of that. It's a very low price to pay
For safety.
for not falling off the roof. Don't get me wrong, you can fall off a roof even with them, but it cuts down the odds, and that's what we're trying to do, is cut down the odds of failure. Now, when you're sealing everything, make sure all your roof screws are tight and not stripped. So there's sort of a balance. When it bottoms out, that's when you stop. You don't keep going until it, it makes a gun stop. You go down, you pull it down until it bottoms out. So there are other things you can buy. On some companies, you can buy the ends to cover this, to cover the open area. So quite often the metal will come out like so, and they'll provide a way that the ridge cap doesn't have a gap there. Personally, what I do is either I take these up to a point and then the ridge cap can sit on that, or I take them over the ridge cap and I split it down the middle. But I have many times gone back and fixed that so that there's no gap up there in that peak. Now, I have not used them very much, but they actually, instead of using foam closure, they actually have a ridge cap that breathes, a closure that breathes. I can't remember what that's called, but it's sort of like a mesh, sort of like a filter mesh, and then you would cut open across the top that roof line so it let out heat to breathe in and out. On a double wide, you would end up with vents that are to vent the roof. Quite a few brands are square. They're usually on the opposite side of the front door so that you don't see them as much. And you also have to deal with special metal around skylights. Personally, most people, by the time I show up to work on their house, they want to get rid of the skylights. If it's conventional home, maybe not, but invariably they all tend to leak. You can work on them so that they don't, but you can consider that everything here. One of the things that kind of trips me up is like, I would never do, metal roof because I've never had any problem with shingle roof. So what happens is they don't do any maintenance on the roof jacks, the heater, the fireplace areas, and whenever the storm comes along and blows off a chunk of it, we got insurance to pay for it. Well, guess what? As they go along through there, say, there's plywood right below that roof jack that we're going to have to replace that section there, and there's a section over here by the fireplace that's rotted out.
And the insurance doesn't cover that.
That's because you didn't do the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
You thought you'd had a non-maintenance roof, but in reality you did, you just didn't have it done. Nobody does. They figure that roof's up there and I don't have to think about it. But you do. You do.
Also, don't forget, if you go shingle to metal roof, you don't have to take those shingles off.
Yeah, and as a rule, I don't take the shingles off. Those shingles have been shedding water all along. Now I don't have to put anything down to shed water. Mm-hmm. Right?
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, to say something about it. I don't take shingles off. Unless there's some problem and I need to fix the roof, I don't take the shingles off. And I've been on some roofs that were really, really bad. They asked me, can you fix it on a budget? And I managed to put a metal roof on it because those screws would hit enough of the plywood to pull through and hold it down. So I don't pull the shingles off. If you want me to pull the shingles off, you're going to pay me. You're going to pay good. All right? Hopefully I've left you with enough information that you can bid your own. There's quite a few tricks on how to install it in both a double wide and a single wide, conventional home. Quite a few ways. But all those are not on how to estimate or how I come up with an estimate. This is. So I'm hoping that this is adequate. If you have any questions, you're welcome to call in on any of the live streams and
Leave
ask.
it on the thing too.
On the what?
They can leave it in a comment.
Yes, go ahead and comment, and I'll try to respond to every bit of it.
He answers all his comments.
So I would ask you to consider thinking about things that confuse you and watch some videos, but don't have to be just mine. But I have 1,400, I guess. And this is the live stream that we're doing for YouTube on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time. And we also do on TikTok on Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time on TikTok. And that will be tomorrow at 10 p.m. on TikTok. We will discuss this again. And I'll probably be a little more polished, or I'll end up making mistakes. Either one that allows for me to convey to you how I get an estimate done. I hope I've been clear enough. And if not, my boys have something that they can look at one day when they want to do a metal roof. All right. So, guys, again, if you have any questions, comments of any kind, I'm encouraging it. Yeah, and I deal with criticism. I still learn from the smallest, out of the mouths of babes. So I don't have any problem understanding that I have things to learn, and things change. The only thing that stays the same is everything changes. So in my lifetime, there has been a lot of changes, and I'm well aware of that. I'm not resisting it. I just don't want to change my conscience. I want to treat the customer right. I want to share with you the information so it's not like a mystery. And then you can watch videos and see how it's done. So it's not a mystery. And you will know how they bid it themselves and how they do it themselves if you don't do it yourself. So be well informed. And that means you're well armed mentally. With that in mind, I'm going to let you guys go. And I wish you all the best. May trouble always follow you and never catch up. See you later.